Good evening, everyone. I think I've been sitting there quietly listening to what the educationists have to say about how to bring up children. In fact, I was talking to somebody right now, and we were talking about how we need to prepare the kids of today for a tomorrow that we don't understand. I think so. That's where the conversation is going to be today. Uh, Professor Pratik, I'm going to begin with you to try and understand. Uh, uh, he's not here. He's not here. Okay, cool. So then I'll go to Abhishek ji. Uh, would you want to share with us some kind of an experience, some example to set the context for everyone of how in your journey you have seen learning, outcome-based learning work for someone to create a career that they otherwise would not have been ready for?
So there's absolutely no doubt. There's been this debate going on in terms of OBE, outcome-based education, outcome-based learning, vis-a-vis input-based, right? And I think that we've gone past that, and the regulator also today talks about OBE, and we're all moving towards OBE. I'll maybe start with a frivolous example. There was this student who was asked to learn about how to fix a punctured tire, right? With all the steps. We talk about how do we jack the car and take the tire out and fix the puncture, fill the air in, put the tire back in. When you're fixing the tire, then you know the torque at which you need to fix, the pressure in the tire, etc. And the car starts moving, right? Now, in a regular theoretical class, he's done everything the right way, right? If it was a theory exam, he would have written all the steps properly. He would have probably got 100 out of 100. But what if the car punches again after a kilometer, right? What if there was another puncture which he didn't notice and the car got punctured again? Now, that was a classical difference between a theoretical or a subject-based movement towards an outcome-based movement, where the outcome that we want in this case is to ensure that the flat tire is fixed and it doesn't go flat for a reasonable amount of time. So identifying what is your ultimate objective, the outcome that you would want, and how do you reach there, the tools, methodologies to reach that outcome is, I think, what the current educational ecosystem is also focusing on, and I think that's the right way to go as well. And there are multiple real life examples where there have been. I can talk about our own university. We are a skill-based university, right? And our focus is on skills. There's knowledge, there's skills, there's attitude, and all of that. But because we're a skills-based university, we work directly with the industry, where the industry tells us that I expect the student, when he comes to my industry, for example, I'll give you a specific example. Volvo, as a client of ours, tells us that these are the skills that we need from the student when he comes to our campus. And we focus only on those skills to make sure that those skills he definitely has. And then there are additional skills we give him so that if he has to look for life beyond the current employer, then he has that skill as well. So defining the objective, the ultimate objective is important. The course objective, the program objective, and then creating the rest of the curriculum and performance criteria, etc., is as important as just the teaching and learning by itself.
Mr. Khatri, we were talking of curriculum. When we are looking at as an institution, and we are living in an era where everything needs to be personalized, we have the ability and the technology to identify the interests of people, you have psychometrist tests, etc. But when as an institution you have to cater to a wider set of students, how and what should be done so that students' interest is taken care of while ensuring while ensuring that we are taking care of the interest of every student who may be coming from different backgrounds, different interest areas.
Thank you for the interesting question. In fact, if we see, today we are talking about outcome-based education system. This concept is there for more than a century. 1930s, Kentucky state in US, the universities and in schools also, the concept of connecting the teaching and the learning was there. In fact, in one of a book by Ralph Tyler, 1949, he had mentioned that the effectiveness of the teaching should be a criteria connected with the outcome learning of a student. And outcome-based education that we saw today in schools also it is there, in universities, higher education also is there, which is different countries have adopted it in a different way, different point of time. 1990s onward it's going on, with India getting into the system very aggressively from 2014 onwards. In fact, in our university also, we had started in 2013 itself, the outcome-based education system. What you are asking about is that how it can be aligned with the student's preferences and his strengths or his hobbies or likelihood where he wants to move on to. Now, every university, if you see, this outcome-based education is somewhere it is skill-based, somewhere it is models-based, somewhere it is method-based. You cannot see the same OBE system in the various universities also. So the universities have a broader graduate attributes that what they want their students to have attributes after the graduation, which not only include the professional and vocational skills, but also life skills and communication skills, soft skills, including the skills which are related to team skills also. Then at every program level, there are learning outcomes, and then every course there are learning outcomes. So the student, based on their interest, based on understanding that what is the expected outcome of these courses and the programs, can pick up the courses with a basket now with the new system of NEP, which was referred to in the last session also quite actively. And this NEP has a provision where you talks about the student choosing from different basket and aligning a course system where they can understand the various outcomes which are there, measurable, qualitative and quantitative from the courses, and can make a basket of their own. So that flexibility has come on very well over the last 4-5 years as we had seen this NEP introduced, and now progressively all the higher education system institutions have imbibing it in their structures also.
That's fantastic. I think, you've touched upon a very important aspect. And Professor Sendil, let me come to you. Gaurav, we've got, this is the challenge of not having a conversation before the session. Gaurav, when we're looking at outcomes, this is very similar to something like the goals that we have. We have these SMART goals, very clearly communicated. Outcomes are like that. But as an educator, how do we align these clear, specific goals and align it to the outcomes so that, it actually turns out to what it is set out to create, rather than just leaving it to a chance? Because like I said, we do not know the future that is going to be there. We do not even know what careers are going to be available at that point in time. So how do we make it clear, specific, measurable to be aligned to the future that could be?
So we've talked a lot about curriculum, and I think Professor Khatri also talked about the fact that there is a lot of flexibility within the curriculum that is being provided. Also, learning outcomes are defined at various levels, starting from graduate attributes, getting down to program, then course, even within course, you have modules. So there is a science behind this madness. Now, for decades, educationists have cracked on how to do this. Like the corporate sector has cracked SMART goals, and you talked about it. Educationists have also cracked this. But I think what's very important is to continuously make sure that one is plugged into the realities of the space you are catering to. And let me give you an example. So I represent the Indian School of Development Management, which is a management school for the social sector in India. And so when we created our one-year postgraduate program, we started by trying to understand what the management needs of the social sector today are. And I think every educational institution over a period of time, periodically, should go through that re-evaluation exercise. Because then you start saying, is my curriculum suited to the needs of the market? That's what outcomes-based education means. I'm not getting into the pedagogy of it. I'm getting into the outcomes of it, which is you're trying to narrow the gap between learning and education on one end and employability on the other. It's a very narrow definition, unfortunately. But since that's a topic today, I'm speaking on that, right? So if you're able to have a much stronger pulse on what the market needs, you're able to very clearly target the market that you are looking to cater to, then you'll be able to do a very, very good job of creating the right kind of curriculum and periodically updating it. You will also then be able to evolve, innovate, and create the right kind of pedagogies needed to deliver that curriculum, and the right kind of assessment methodologies needed to figure out on a regular basis whether you are achieving the outcomes you set out to achieve. At the course level, it's normally simpler. At the graduate attributes level, it is very hard. It's not, because it's more philosophical actually at the graduate attributes level. But if you continuously take feedback from faculty who are teaching, from students who are learning, and from the employers who are hiring, you will get a sense of where you're going right and where you're not. So this plug into the happenings of the world outside, rather than being stuck in a tower inside, is one very, very big, I think, success factor for OB.
Got it. Dr. Khatri, one of the things that when I framed my question earlier was around measurement. How do you measure that we are on the right path? How do you focus on assessment, especially at the time when you are, suddenly we are finding that there are self-paced programs that they have access to, there are clearly defined outcomes that they have an expectation in their mind, and we are also talking about creating and enabling our children to have life skills for the future, but yet they have to be assessed on a system which is probably a legacy system that we have inherited. So how do you balance between this, creating life skills for the future and the assessment based on the legacy system that we have inherited?
Thank you for this very interesting question. I think everyone will agree it's a very interesting question. See, earlier we used to go through a traditional educational system, and now we have moved on to OBE. Most of the universities and even the schools are now moving towards it. And when we talk about OBE, definitely outcome-based education system, outcomes to be measured and to be assessed at the different levels have different parameters, different ways of assessment. When we talk about assessment of outcomes at the course level, it's very easy, because course has mostly the direct outcomes, and these direct outcomes can be measured through the assessment, whether it is in the classroom, whether it is in the practicals, field-based experiential learning, or maybe through assignments as a self-work. But when we talk about outcomes which are at higher level, for example, at program level, as Mr. Gaurav was saying, there's some generality comes into picture, because then it becomes partially subjective and lesser objective. But when we move towards a more higher level, that is graduate attributes at the university level, which are purely subjective in nature, the assessment is very difficult and it is always challenging. And in fact, one of the challenges today this OBE is facing is in terms of the assessment techniques, parameters, and the outcome related to it. So if we bring more refinement as we move on progress and see with the feedbacks, as mentioned also by the speaker, then definitely we can bring in that system where OB can be more effective, and both qualitative as well as quantitative assessments can be combined together, moving across the various levels of granularity.
Gaurav, let me ask you this very interesting question. I think it is very interesting because as a student, when I was in my management school, when I look back, I really find that it was very tough for the professors, etc., to engage the students productively. It was always a challenge to have them sit for an hour in the room and make it interesting for them. Today, we are finding it even tougher because the education expectation is that it will be interesting, it will be motivating, it will be inspiring. So keeping in mind the measurement, assessment, etc., what are the challenges that you feel we are facing to engage the students and keep them aligned to the outcome that we are trying to create for them?
How many people here have children? Many people. So when you had children, you would have gone and met your gynae, right? Multiple times, not once, but multiple times. One of the challenges I faced during that process is because we used to read so much before going to the gynae used to get really, really worried. Like, it's good to read, but at times you don't fully understand what you read. Sorry, Harbinder, that analogy is very similar to what the students are going through. The role of education today is not to impart facts. When you talk about engagement, this is again a standard model in education, is the idea of a flipped classroom. The role of a classroom is to build perspective, is to build discussions, is to build arguments, is to build thought processes, not to teach ABC anymore. That students can learn on their own. Educational institutions which continue to do that will continue to struggle engaging students. The average attendance at ISTM, we're a postgraduate program, we're a management program, is anywhere north of 85%. It's unheard of in a postgraduate program that you will have such high attendance. But the reason students come to class is because the kind of culture that you create, the democratic and the Socratic way of asking questions, continuously exploring on the why. So there is no right answer. In the social sector and in social issues in the country, it's very hard to say, ye sahi hai aur ye galat hai. It's many times a question of perspective. So continuously pushing students to think through things, asking the right questions is what engages them, because suddenly you are treating them as adults and not children. Nobody today likes to be treated as children. Even actual children don't like to be. My son, he's all of 11 and he's telling me that y'all treat me like little people. Little people. And he doesn't like the fact that he's treated like little people. So, we're talking about college and all. So, you have to treat people as adults. You have to give them, everybody in an educational institution should have the same right to voice. This is how you build the culture of engagement. When they have a connect to the educational institution, to the program, they will come to class and they will engage. But if we treat them as customers and make education a transactional process, it's very hard. Today's kids are way smarter than we were at that age. It's very hard to keep them in class.
Awesome. And Sendel, right? So I'm getting the name right now, finally. We've been talking about outcomes, but I actually want to take a step back and try and understand what do we mean by outcomes. Because when somebody is joining an institute, they have a framework in their mind of the outcome that they're expecting. There's an expectation of the parents or their mentors who've been guiding them. And also, I think that the outcome or the understanding of the expected outcome also changes, evolves as and when you're studying. So how do you as an institute or as an institution identify what outcomes are you working towards? What is the expectation of an outcome of the student, and align and realign during the journey of the education?
So good evening to all. So we are into the medical sector. It's very difficult for us molding the students. Their expectation is very different. Someone expert this thing, that thing. So it's very difficult to identify them. What we will do means we'll mold students. We'll give the training how to attend the interviews, how to behave during the job, the periods. We started giving the trainings like mock interviews, kind of thing. Many things we have started training with that is after they'll feel that, I'm sure that they will feel that that is thing they'll fulfill. Uh, and a lot of trainings also we are started giving, like industrial postings, industrial trainings also we have started giving. We have approximately 47 MOE we have done with the hospitals and the industries, and we are running the 13 more courses. 13 more courses, and students are around 585 students. Uh, so the expectation is it's very different, and according to the expectations, we are started the training also, and the clinical training also. Training is different. It is like mock interview sessions, how to behave with the patients, mainly with the patients. If you are going blankly means it is like very crucial thing for us. In health sectors, how to you should know the ethics, the medical ethics. Then only you can go for the medical sectors. If a patient dies, means that we have the response. We have to answer. Management should answer how we are training the students, how we are molding the students, how we are fulfilling the things. Before that, we have started the things of like what I said.
Got it. Abhishek ji, people have preconceived notions. And students, when they're there, I know that as management students, everybody, the first thing that they teach in a management school is that who is a manager? Manager is the one who gets work done. And the perception that is created is that boss, आपने strategy बनाई और उसके बाद आप कुर्सी के ऊपर बैठ गए और आप delegate करोगे, because the focus is on the definition of management and delegation, etc. How do we, as responsible educators, align their perceptions to a reality? Because when they go out in the real world, they have to face something which is very different from what they have created in their mind. So as an institution, how do you do that? Because, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because, all of us have Google, all of us have access to ChatGPT, and we have preconceived notions which we believe as a reality. But when we really go to the workplace, we realize what the real work looks like. So how do we prepare and realign the reality, or them to the reality?
Right. So first of all, you started by saying manager, right? The first thing we tell them is when you join the workforce, you have to be clear you are not going to be a manager. You're going to start bottoms up, right? Expectation setting, as you rightly said, is the most important thing to do with the student, so that he is very clear in terms of what he is going to do post the course that he is currently doing. But what most of us do today is to make sure that the student understands the industry, student knows where he's getting into. Most or almost all our courses have internship or apprenticeship embedded as a part of the course. So there is a period of 6 months where the student is actually in the industry. In fact, we have a course called as Bachelor of Vocation, where the student is in the industry for half the time. Out of the 3 years, 3 semesters, he's in the industry. And we've also noticed that those students who are in the industry for 3 semesters out of 6 are much more confident at the end of the program than those students who don't go to the industry. And it's very important that they get a flavor of the workplace, not only the skills, but the attitude, knowledge being used at the right time, and obviously whatever happens in the office, your boss, your colleague, all of that flavor for the first time in their life is what they get. And these are small skills that as institutions we can't teach them. We can tell them, but they get to know only when they go to the industry. And there's also apprenticeship program that we do. There's apprenticeship embedded degree programs that we run. These are programs which give them life skills which we would never be able to give in our institution. And that's one of the ways where you could actually tell them, and when they go and come back, the expectation is also very clear. They know, what they have done. They would know what they would be doing later as well. So slowly and steadily bringing them up to speed to what the industry wants them to do is what we try and do our best.
Gaurav, continuing with that, what happens is that we have professors, teachers, academicians who are highly experienced, but things are changing really fast. It's not just the business environment, even the education environment is changing, the expectations are changing, and the understanding of the outcome and objectives could be very varied when it comes to between what a student thinks about the outcome and what their objective is or what perception they have of what is going to happen once they complete the course versus what the professor has. So how do we bring them on a common ground so that we are doing justice by preparing them of the reality of today and not what it was when we passed out from our completing our education?
So, Harbinder, I'll go back to what I started with saying, that it is very important for academicians and education institutions to have a plug into the world outside. If you're able to create that plug, and that is happening increasingly even in the current educational space through the idea of professors of practice, where you get practitioners, पहले भी था, अभी उसको और formalize कर दिया है. Earlier also we used to have, even in our management schools. So if you're able to actually design and offer courses which combine the academic frameworky knowledge that academicians bring, which is very important by the way, with the practical real world applications that a practitioner gets, you will create gold. Otherwise, and one in the absence of the other is actually a waste. So even at ISDM when we started, we said the idea of development management does not exist. So let's start from practice and get practitioners to come and teach. Very powerful for practitioners to come and teach, but practitioners do not have the ability to theorize. So a practitioner will come and give an anecdote and will teach through anecdotes and examples. Academicians on the other hand theorize very well, but are at times divorced from the changes, the progress, okay, I won't say progress, but the changes outside. So being able to marry this and continuously plugging into both realities is what's going to keep you modern and abreast. Otherwise, you will become archaic. And in fast-changing world, you will become archaic very, very fast. The last thing, and you talked about students, bringing in students in this, as educational institutions, we have to increasingly be more and more honest about what we are communicating. Through our websites, through our social media channels, through the PR that we do. If we are not honest, then this gap will become even larger and larger. And there are enough reasons why we are not honest, but we have to find more and more reasons why we should be honest about what this course can do, what this course can't do, what you will learn, what you will not learn, and what will happen after this. So, my MBA times, I'm talking about multiple decades ago, एक नौकरी लगती थी 1 करोड़ रुपए की. इकोनॉमिक टाइम्स के फ्रंट पेज में आर्टिकल होता था, IIM से 1 करोड़ की नौकरी लगी है. एवरेज सैलरी 5 लाख 6 लाख की ही होती थी, लेकिन सोसाइटल एक्सपेक्टेशन बन गई है कि 1 करोड़ की नौकरी लगी है. सो दैट इज द काइंड ऑफ गेम्स वी ऑल प्ले. सो यू हैव टू बी केयरफुल and be as honest as we can.
Dr. Khatri, we were talking about getting people from the real world, real work environment to come and speak to the students, teach them on the practical aspects. But, you and me were talking some time back and we were talking about how can we create practical experience, because when we talk about entrepreneurship today, and there's a lot of focus on that, I don't think we can teach somebody to become an entrepreneur. It has to be something which is experiential. You have to experience it. You have to go through that to understand. And the last panel was talking about preparing people for failure. You can't learn failure until you experience it. So what is it that you at Amity are doing to create that practical exposure and experiential learning for students to be prepared for a real world outside? What is it that you are doing?
Thank you. In fact, if we talk about giving the opportunities to the student, we have a very holistic ecosystem being developed at the university. One thing you have already mentioned, entrepreneurship development. So we have our incubator, we have our entrepreneurship cell, which initially handhold the students to have the awareness programs, and then from there onwards, innovation incubator cell takes care of industry interaction and collaboration, both not only for training programs as being mentioned, but also industry driven and industry led programs in partnership with them are also there. For example, we are running degree programs in partnership with CII. We have, for logistics, we have in built environment with RICS UK, with TCS Tata, we have in mechanical engineering, we have programs. In management, we have programs in collaboration and partnership with industry. At Amity, we have programs also with other national defense and non-defense laboratories also. We are very strongly partnering and doing activities with the labs such as DRDL, DRDO, CSIR. We had offered defense technology programs, and definitely industry collaboration and very active participation and contribution from industry has to be there. So interaction is one thing. Giving opportunities to the students by going to the industry through apprenticeship, which is mentioned, or other field experiential based programs or courses is another thing. But definitely opportunities within the ecosystem of the university at higher education has to be there with the help of entrepreneurship activities, innovation, design centers we have at our university, and also with the help of various industry-led and driven programs to account for.
Dr. Sendil, you're specifically working on the healthcare side, right? We've seen medical colleges prepare doctors who are very, very qualified, very learned, but they don't know how to run a practice, right? Similarly, when you're talking about healthcare services and preparing students to come and work in the healthcare environment, the basics of empathy, following the rules, the code of ethics, they're not aware of it until they start working and they're told that ye kar sakte ho, ye nahi kar sakte ho. Yeah, the underlying fundamental basic of every healthcare practitioner is empathy. But they're working in India specifically, they're working in an environment which is very pressured and they break down. So how do you prepare students specifically in healthcare industry to go equipped with life skills that are extremely important in creating experiences and patient centricity?
So two things we can do. One group of students, they will go accordingly by their own. Another thing is that is some people have the professionalism. They'll follow that. These people, they are very clever. They knows how to act. So the next one, that is that people, they'll come for time pass. Like time pass, their goal is we have to complete. We have to do the job. That's all. And the professional people who are having that dedication, this type of the kind of people will go high. So they will achieve the goal.
My next question is actually just stemmed out of what Gaurav you touched upon, and I think it is extremely important that we address this here. When we're talking about outcomes, these are outcomes created on the perception to a large extent which has been created by the healthcare industry, education industry. Like you said, the kind of press releases that we do, creating an expectation that, if you do your MBA from this institute, you will get a 1 crore rupee package, which is far from reality. How should we handle this, keeping a balance between the sustainability, financial sustainability of the institution that we run versus being responsible for creating the right kind of expectations which will set the outcomes that we are creating in their mind? Any one of you, who?
So if I attempt this, it's going to be a very unpopular opinion, actually. I don't believe that higher education should be a commercial endeavor. I somehow, and a lot of this kind of market failures happens because the motivation behind higher education is now very different. So if higher education can be a philanthropic / government / subsidy driven effort where the focus is not on leaving students in debt, then we will stop doing press releases like this. Then we will do other things. But as I said, it'll be a very unpopular opinion, but higher education has moved very, very far, maybe from where we started from.
Okay, I will give a different perspective to it. Sis Budde sir is sitting here, and definitely we are talking about outcomes everywhere. Even in the new NAC format, outcome has been very strongly emphasized on. And to look into that, how we can see the effectiveness of OBE system at the universities, because the universities have now a mandate from UGC, from for accreditations bodies, that they have to upload their graduate attributes, which can easily distinguish also at the first level that what type of skills the university is going to emphasize upon, and then every program learning outcomes and course learning outcomes are also available easily on their web portals. So if the stakeholders such as parents, students, and even industry who have to recruit these passing out students, if they go through these outcomes mentioned at the course and program level, and also as a graduate attribute at the university level, they can easily compare and distinguish the primary objective and the focus of the universities, which can make it easy for stakeholders to decide what they want to do it. At the university level, you had mentioned about press release also, it's okay, but there are many sources of information, and there are sufficient enough such sources which can make it clearly easy to understand what really the university is going to offer to us and what are the facilities available at the university. So we can utilize those information which are available at different sources.
As long as the universities exist, as long as the number of universities keep going up, there will be very soon 1,500 and 2,000 maybe one day. There will be competition. When there's competition, everybody wants to say I'm better than the other, and there will be numbers which will be exaggerated, inflated. This is going to happen. I don't think we can stop it. Transparency is the only way we can get this sorted, and we should try and push for a transparent system, and there are regulators who will ensure that this happens.
I hope we start focusing on how we are different rather than just focusing on transparency. But if you create a differentiation on what we are going to do and how we are going to impart education, well, I feel there are three aspects to the education industry. One is the student who turns into a professional, and then the industry, and then the academicians. But I think to sum it up, what I understand from listening to all of you is that it's time that we start looking at beyond knowledge, and we start focusing on skills. We start preparing our students on having skills and the mindset so that they are able to adapt to the changes that could be happening, because we don't know what the industry of tomorrow is going to look like. We don't even know what kind of jobs will exist tomorrow, and we build them with skills that help them adapt, accept the change, adapt to the change, and then are ready to unlearn, relearn, upskill, reskill themselves, and be successful in whatever they are doing in any situation that they are put into. So thank you so much for contributing your thoughts on the outcomes of the what is there in the mind of the students when they come in and join the institution and have a journey till they touch the industry and face the reality. So thank you so much.